Hello everyone, welcome to another access control coaching session. My name is Cole Neviker. I am the training and event manager here at PDK, and today we are going to be discussing access control maintenance. We will be covering everything from hardware over to software and everything in between. So as usual, be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss these future videos. We have them the first Tuesday of every month. And not to spoil anything too dramatically, but next month's access control coaching session is going to be really special. So I hope you are there. Let's just jump right into it then, shall we? I will say as we get started here, if you have any questions as we go, be sure to drop them in the comment box so that we can address those questions before the video is out. As a reminder, I am on a 30-second delay from what you are seeing on your screen, so be sure to get those questions out sooner rather than later. Let's start with the physical hardware. Okay, let's talk about readers, DPS, and REXs. So for your readers, you are going to have a couple of maintenance items to perform on them. The first, of course, is just to make sure that they are working. Are they scanning cards correctly? Are the LEDs doing anything weird? Are they flickering? Are they flashing green when they're not supposed to? All that stuff that you can do from a quick visual inspection. Secondarily to that, check the wall mounting. Now, when you are inspecting a reader for the wall mounting, check that it is flush against the wall because some of these readers have a light-activated piezo. It's the tamper alarm of the readers. And if they are not flush against the wall, or if they don't have a material such as caulk around the outside of it, it could be that they end up setting off the anti-tamper alarm, which you don't want. An easy way to test your readers to make sure they're working correctly is to pull open live events and first make sure that no erroneous data is coming through. If you see miscellaneous numbers popping through, it could be that you have a short in the system or a terminal is not tightened correctly. The second easiest thing to do is to present a known credential against it and make sure that it recognizes that credential and that the LED turns green after the credential is presented. So a lot of this monitoring and verification of correct functionality can be done within the Live Events tab. For your DPS, very similar. Make sure it is flushly, is that a word? I think I made that word up just now. Ensure flush mounting. And test your door opening and closing. Pop the door open, closed, make sure it's responding instantaneously within the Live Events tab. DPSs are fairly simple. It's just a magnet in a sensor, right? A little thin piece of metal. So nothing too crazy here. Just open the door a couple of times and make sure that the DPS itself is flush against the door and the frame or the ceiling or the whatever the other side is connected to. For your REX, you can update positioning from feedback. So this may be where you focus a little less on live events. You will use live events, but also listen to the feedback of customers. I recall, excuse me, some years ago here at the PDK office, we had a REX that was newly installed. We had just moved offices, and I kept running into the dang door because by the time the sensor picked up on me, it was pointed too close to the door, and it didn't have time to activate before I hit the door. So based off of my feedback and presumably others, we climbed up on a ladder and pointed the sensor a little further inwards. That's a prime example of where you may not necessarily know. Obviously, the install itself didn't pick up on that, but based on customer feedback, you can update the positioning of your infrared motion REX. You can also just do some basic test approaches and adjust the timing of the REX, whether that be the relay on the REX itself or perhaps the timing of the REX in the software. You can make some adjustments there and then, of course, review live events to make sure that anytime it triggers, it is activating and detecting within the software. That is, of course, assuming if it's a direct disconnect that you have a line tied from the REX still into the B input of the board. Now let's move into locking hardware and controllers. So The two pieces of locking hardware that I want to focus on are going to be your strikes and mags. So strikes, you're going to want to ensure consistent release. Make sure that it doesn't get held up. There's no kind of delay. Just make sure that there's no undue pressure being put on that strike. You can lubricate the strike and the solenoid by using graphite powder or lithium paste. It's not something you would probably put grease onto. But also, in addition to that, you'll want to maybe look at the alignment. Maybe you installed it, maybe it's just fallen out of place, maybe you didn't install it, and the customer's been complaining of a door that's not latching correctly or requires excessive pressure to close and latch. Just test the alignment. Make sure it's good and square, and if not, make any adjustments necessary. For the mag lock, make sure it is integrated directly in with the rec so that you have those direct disconnects. Ensure the alignment is kosher. You see a lot of alignment-focused items in here with the readers, the DPS. The mag lock is another one. And then some of these can get quite dirty. So something I was reading on I forget which manufacturer's website it was, one of their recommendations when maintaining their mag locks was to just give it a quick spritz and wipe it down with a microfiber cloth. Make sure that there's no residue or powders accumulating on the surface of the mag. Now for your controllers, it's kind of a whole different thing because the controllers are circuit boards. There's no maintenance really you can do on the circuit board aside from making sure that things are tied into the right place and maybe tidying up. But what you can do is make sure that the stuff that is running to the controllers is up to par. So make sure you don't have any bare wires. If you see any bare wires, you should probably just try again. It's clear back, oh my gosh, this was clear back when I was in production. We used to pre-wire some of the controllers, and my boss at the time, the production manager, that was a huge stickler for whether there were any bare wires. And if I left even the tiniest sliver of bare wire visible on the builds that we were about to build and send out to customers, he'd make me go back and redo it. And that's a good practice. Make sure there are no bare wires. Any bare wires are an opportunity for the board to short circuit or for the device that is connected to that wire to short circuit. It's just good practice to make sure that the wires are completely concealed inside of the terminal blocks themselves. Testing for relays. You can listen for clicks. That one's pretty easy. If you're having problems, maybe you're using this as more of a troubleshooting step, but maybe if you're at the controller, just toggle the relay a few times. It's an electromechanical relay, so you should hear an audible click in both directions when you open and close the relay. So it's an easy way to test that the relay hasn't fused or is still in good functioning order. Again, if there actually was a problem, you would presumably just see that the door wasn't working and you would have your problem right then and there. But if you're doing some preventative maintenance, maybe you just listen for some unusual clicks. And then finally, just remove all the spare dust from inside the enclosure. It never hurts to keep things clean and tidy. Maybe do some wire management, make sure everything is Velcroed or zip tied to the enclosure, to the sides, going through conduit, whatever the case is. But a quick spritz with a keyboard air, what are those called? The keyboard air compressor cleaner. You guys know what I'm talking about. A quick spritz with that will keep things nice and clean. My worst nightmare, I still remember this. I was working in the RMA department, and we received a cloud node back that had been mounted outside, and I popped it open, and this giant spider came crawling out of the enclosure, and I was mortified. Because it was horrendously dirty. I can't prove that it was the dirt that caused the cloud node to go kaput, but I was pretty certain it had something to do with the spider and the nest of eggs inside of there. So anyways, just keep your stuff clean. All right, let's talk about batteries. batteries are an important part of your access control system. You can maintain your cells best in roughly room temperature, so around 66 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit. I just put 70 Fahrenheit for optimal lifespans. That's for your lead acid batteries, I should say. Each battery will have its own, or I should say each battery technology will have its own maintenance recommendations. An easy thing to do is just check the terminals for corrosion or damage. Check if any of those terminals are loose as well. That may indicate that you need to replace that battery early or that the battery's lifespan is up. And check the battery health every 6 to 12 months. Maybe run it through a charge and discharge cycle. You can replace those batteries as needed. Batteries will generally last you about 3 to 5 years. I should go back. Lead acid batteries should last you about 3 to 5 years. So if you're past that 5-year time frame, maybe just make sure that you go back in and swap those batteries out as part of a maintenance contract that you have with that customer. So that covers most of our hardware items. And now I want to move into the software items, because I think good hygiene on an access control system can also be applied to the software maintenance. So the first thing is going to kind of depend on what your contract with the end user entails exactly. So are you the installer and then you wipe your hands and you're completely done with the end user and they manage the PDK system themselves? That's fairly common and that's not unusual. Or are you the installer that builds a service contract, a maintenance contract, and keeps the customer system up to date and fully functional at all times? If you're the latter, then probably this makes a lot of sense to you. If you're an end user watching this, this is good software hygiene for you to consider when you're cleaning up your PDK system. All right, so with all that out of the way, I want to cover new users. Make sure you add in new users and issue the appropriate credentials. That's the first item, and obviously they won't get very far in the building unless you add them as a new user. However, review those users consistently. It could be a different time span for everyone. Maybe it's every month, maybe it's every week, maybe it's every 6 months, every year. Anything more than reviewing maybe longer than once a year is kind of stretching it. You very frequently want to check any users that maybe haven't used the system in a long time. And it could be because they are just not using their credentials. Maybe they're just going through scheduled doors, or maybe it's just somebody you missed. Maybe they were let go and they kept their credentials and you completely forgot to remove them from the system. That's a huge security concern. So make sure you're consistently going through, reviewing users and removing them as applicable. There is an easy way to do this, and that is through a people or credentials report. With a people report, you can pull a full list of users, their activation expiration date. Maybe you just delete anyone that's expired, or you can do credentials and see when a credential was last scanned and who's associated with that credential. So that's a nice, easy way to keep your system up to date and clean. Now for lost credentials, it should be that people are coming to you and reporting that they've lost credentials, or maybe this is another case of where you're going through that report and you see somebody hasn't used their card in 8 months and the whole building is locked down all the time and they're at work every single day. You go into their profile and you just see, oh, well, they lost this card and they just forgot to report it and they're instead using this alternative access method instead. You can go in and delete that card because who knows where that card is, or you can bring it up with that user. It's important with an access control system that it's current, because the security of the system is only as good as the information that's provided to the system. So make sure you remove lost credentials or disable profiles with those lost credentials to maintain that integrity of the access control system. Moving away from users into actual system items, make sure everything's updated. The nice thing with PDK-IO 2.0 is that you can view at all times in the System Health tab whether the system is up to date. At current, I believe cloud nodes are at 2.4.6 and controllers are at 2.2.16. So you can very easily go in, and I should back up here. The 2.4.6 cloud node update, I believe, is being rolled out right now, so yours may not yet be updated to 2.4.6. But a good practice is to go in and just make sure that everything is up to date. And typically, if it's not up to date, it's because something's wrong. Either there's an unstable connection, the controller is fully disconnected, maybe the system isn't online, it doesn't have a view to PDK, whatever the case is. There's a lot of reasons that something might not update. And a nice, easy way to make sure that gets updated is just to reach out to support. Just be like, hey, my thing hasn't updated in a month, and I know that the most current is this. Is there some reason that my system hasn't updated yet? Your battery health can be monitored from the System Health tab as well. You can actually see a lot of items about your battery health. You can view the battery percentage, so how much battery is currently available, the health and the output, and you can see how much output, amperage and voltage is going through the battery into the board. And then finally, your comm loss, which is cause for concern generally because it means that the controllers are not communicating back to the cloud node. So in other words, the cloud node is pinging the controllers and not receiving a response back. This can happen for a variety of reasons. If it's wireless, it could be because of interference. It could be because of distance limitations. It could be a number of things. Generally, it's a little less common for Ethernet, but it does happen, and usually as a result of a bad Ethernet cable or a loose connection inside the switch, or maybe the switch has been powered down that the controller is connected to. Could be a million different things, but comm loss allows you to easily identify which controllers are not functioning properly and quickly address them by going to the switch, making sure they're plugged in, moving them closer together, whatever the action item is that is needed. So all of these things can be viewed from the System Health tab. The System Health tab should just show a good status. If it's showing a warning, that indicates that there is something not functioning fully in its operational capacity. Now, one of the last things I want to cover here is reports. Reports are going to indicate to you all of the things that are happening on your access control system. I know a lot of people get overwhelmed with reports sometimes. The important thing is to just address it one action item at a time and just stack those action items into the report until you have what you want, what the desired outcome is. So your reports will show you all sorts of things: who attempted to access a door, the time and date of their access, if access was granted or denied, if the user is a part of an access group, what kind of credentials they used, what status their profile is, low battery errors, over voltage, undercurrent, jammed locks, unstable connections, repeated access denials, or sync reports. There's 1,010,000 things that you can pull from these reports. And as a matter of fact, generally these are pulled by certain events being stacked on top of each other to generate a very specific report. But if you frequently are in need of certain report items, you can easily schedule those reports to go out. If you have certain reports that you pull frequently, you can just save them in the software. And if you need help with your report, you can either reach out to your installer or you can reach out to the support team, both of which are great resources for helping you pull a report. You're just going to stack these events together to get one of these results. So a good way to maintain the system is to make sure that the reports don't show any concerning data, anything that's not supposed to be taking place. Some of these ones I listed here on the right: low battery errors, over voltage, undercurrent, jammed locks, unstable connections, repeated access denials. Those are all causes for concern. These are all events that you can filter reports by. Maybe you have a report that just lists all of these and says, if any of these things happen, then I want to see that. And you just pull that report once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever. As long as you have a system in place to consistently pull these audit logs will show you anything and everything that happens on your access control system and will allow you to stay on top of your system all the time, every time. All right, for your system events, this is kind of an add-on to the reporting tab I just covered. These things are the instantaneous notifications. So your most urgent items that need to be reported on will presumably be done through system events. So a couple of things. First, review existing system events. Maybe go in and make sure that the events are applicable, they're still current, updated with all the doors, and more importantly, make sure they're still going to the correct people. Oftentimes people will go into their system events after a long duration and they're just like, hey, I'm not getting notified of this. You go in and they see, oh, well, this system event notification is going to Joe, and Joe hasn't worked here in 3 years. It's a prime example of why you need to go through frequently and make sure that your system event notifications are going to the correct person. Additionally, maybe you want to consider setting up new notifications. We've come out with additional system reportable information that can be added as a push notification. So if you go in and you see, oh, well, I didn't know that I could report on locks being jammed, well, great. Go in and say when a lock is jammed, send a push notification to all of the property managers on site. There's also a consideration if you're the installer of, do I want to be notified in real time of problems with my end user system? That's very valuable for you as an installer to be able to go into your end user and just say, hey, I noticed that the power was lost to X, Y, and Z controllers. Is everything okay with those? Did you guys experience a power outage? Is that something we need to address? Notifications in real time are immensely valuable for system events. It could range from battery connected or disconnected, door jammed, overcurrent, under voltage, door propped, door forced. There's a lot of notifications that you can configure from here. So these are going to be the most instantaneous ways that you can be notified of things happening on your access control systems. And secondarily to that, reports allow you to pull concerning items from a set time frame, a lot of the same ones that you can pull in system events, but as maybe a more infrequent audit trail of when and where and how things went wrong. Okay, if you are the integrator, final steps here, check familiarity with your end users. Make sure they are familiar with all the functionality. We're constantly pushing out new features. So make sure you go in and you're aware of new features. We have these coaching sessions whenever we release new features, and we have feature highlight series that cover new features. We have all sorts of YouTube videos covering how to use all the various features of PDK as we push them out. We're going to constantly update and improve the system. Existing features will stay in place, and your end user will probably continue using them just like they always knew how to. But new features may benefit them, and being able to go to them and make sure that they're familiar with it and you can provide training for them for each of those new features is a very valuable thing to provide. So teach them, instruct them, and help them implement all of these new features. All right, so that covers it. I still haven't seen any questions come through, so I'll give it a second here. I'll make sure my page is refreshed so I'm not just missing something here. But if you have any questions, be sure to drop them right now because we're on that 30-second buffer, so I don't want to finish before anyone's been able to drop a question. As I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we do these on a monthly basis on the first Tuesday of every month. And next month is going to be a really excellent topic. It's going to be on the PDK red wireless lock sets. Unfortunately, I will not be here, and so I will either be having Gus or Brock provide that coaching session, but you do not want to miss that coaching session. It is going to be really awesome. I've delayed for as long as I know how. I'm not very good at drawing things out here, but I still haven't seen any other questions come through. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to the sales team, either through the phone, 801-317-8802 and their extension 1, or you can reach them at sales, S-A-L-E-S, plural, at ProdataKey.com. Otherwise, we will plan on catching you in the next access control coaching session, and thank you for joining.